Hey guys, today we're going to be going over my guide and opinions on Clefable for the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl OU metagame. Hopefully you guys enjoy. If you do, leave a like below, subscribe if you're new, and comment down below what Pokemon you want to see next, because this was actually chosen by the people, for the people. I held a community poll today at around 8:30 a.m. EST, and I'm recording this at 7 p.m. EST, literally an hour before it goes up. So this is literally the Pokemon that was chosen by the people, being Clefable. This was the current winner. I will literally even show it on screen actually, just to make sure this is as updated as possible, because I mean it might have changed in the hour that I was making the sets. But yeah, I can literally hold it up right here, and you guys can see Clefable is in fact the winner. So make sure you guys vote on the next one. I'll probably be tweeting it out tomorrow, posting it in the community tab tomorrow morning. So with that said, let's just get right into it. So we have Clefable here, which is probably going to be by far one of the best fairies. I think the only two that I can name that would give any contention to this Pokemon would be Gardevoir and Togekiss, but they both do have their slew of issues. I do want to actually make a video discussing Gardevoir, because I do think it's actually a really cool fairy this gen, but Togekiss can have a lot of problems. Pretty much the same issues that Clef will have, but severely heightened. I do think Guard can get around some of them, but Togekiss really can't. Clefable still will probably be one of the best Pokemon in the metagame though, just because of the lack of fairies, and also just because of the Clefable. Clefable is always a really good Pokemon. It sometimes doesn't start out that good, but it always ends up being a really dominant Pokemon in like every metagame since it became a fairy type. So with that said, first things first, we're going to go over the lead Clefable, aka Rock's Clefable. This set has Moonblast, Soft Boiled, Stealth Rock, and Thunder Wave on it. The EVs, you'll see this in common with the next set as well. They're mostly EV'd actually for Latios. Basically with this spread, you would take on a Spec-size Shock from Latios, as well as a Life Orb Psychic. You sadly cannot do both Specs hits. I thought that the size Shock one was slightly more useful, because this also means you could take hits from, let's say, Garchomp's Earthquake, for example. So I did think it was pretty invaluable. Just overall, I really didn't think that was an option that you could really pass on, because it checks not only Garchomp really well, but also most of Latios really well. It's really just Spec-Psychic that you're kind of missing out on. But even still, you can Thunder Wave it and then try and just hacks it out with this. Overall, Thunder Wave was really here just because of the fact that Clefable isn't guaranteed knockoff at the current moment. Not until a home transfer happens, so because of that, you're kind of stuck with that extra move slot. And I personally value Thunder Wave a lot actually here. This could really be useful for a lot of Scarfers in the metagame, things like Latios, Infernape, Lucario even potentially, but I don't think Lucario will be as good as it was at the time. Regardless though, there are a lot of good potential Scarfers. Things like Garchomp as well could be a really good Scarfer. Though you can't really Thunder Wave Garchomp. I did just want to mention it, specifically to mention you can't really Thunder Wave it. But Moonblast overall is also going to be really useful. It's probably the only offensive move you'll need on Clefable in most sets. With Soft Boil, it's just a reliable recovery. It's probably the best recovery option you have in my opinion, unless you're specifically throwing on Protect to pair with your Wish. Overall, this Clefable set should be pretty good. It avoids status, which is great. I think that it's not going to be as prevalent as it was in last generation though for Sword and Shield, because of the fact that so many Pokemon lost Toxic Distribution, and we currently don't have a way to transfer through Home like we did for Sword and Shield OU. So because of that, I do think the set actually might be able to get away with Unaware. However, I do have actual Unaware stats built into this guide, so I think that those sets will actually be better off running Unaware than Magikarp Clef would be on this set. I think that especially as a lead, you could still be able to take advantage of the few toxic Pokemon that there are. And also T-Spikes as well, that's another big thing. Clefable does still need to worry about T-Spikes, and a set without Heal Bell, I do think it is something that should actually be respected. Therefore, I do still think you should keep Magikarp on this particular set. Next up, we have Calm Mind and Clef. Specifically, this one is actually dedicated to checking Latios. That's why this set is Unaware, and the next Calm Mind set does not. With this set, we have Calm Mind, Heal Bell, Soft Boil, and Moonblast. With 112 SpDef and 148 HP. As I said, the Psyshock number for Specs and the Psychic number for Life Orb. However, you can still definitely beat Specs with this, thankfully, because of the fact that you do have Calm Mind. You just need to Calm Mind once and then just start spamming Soft Boil until you're beating it. The best part is, too, is with Unaware, you're able to actually beat Calm Mind Lottie 1v1, because of the fact that Calm Mind Lottie does not have a way to KO you, and on top of that as well, you're able to actually boost, while Lottie opposing is not going to be able to actually boost successfully because of the fact that you're unaware. So I do think that this is specifically the Calm Mind Clef to dedicate if your issue is Calm Mind Latios, or just Lottie in general. This set would probably be as good as it gets, in my opinion, as a Lottie counter. Besides, like a Tyranitar, of course, but Tyranitar is really good. However, sadly, it doesn't have recovery. So I think that with that in mind, this probably is one of, if not the best, reliable Lottie answers just for long game. However, as I said, Spec Psychic is definitely a pain. If you did pair this with a T-Tar, though, Lottie should never be a problem for your team. I really cannot see a Lottie set that would be an issue, besides maybe Dragon Dance. But there's so many better Dragon Dance options, things like Salamence and Dragonite, both to name a couple right there. So I do think this Clefable is really good. However, I do think that there's probably a better set for Calm Mind and a better set for just Unaware. However, this set could, in my opinion, actually have a presence. I might actually try this out myself personally. I think this actually looks like it could be pretty decent for Lottie. It really just depends on if Lottie or Garchomp ends up being the top dragon right now. Because if Garchomp ends up being the top dragon right now, I do have a better Unaware set for it, which is the Unaware Stall Clefable that you can see on your screen. However, if Lottie ends up being the premier dragon, I do actually think this Unaware set could end up taking the cake. With that said, though, next up, I do want to get into Offensive Calm Mind Clefable. Now, Offensive Calm Mind Clefable actually has a lot going for it. There are a lot of different options you can run for coverage. For example, I didn't mention Grass Knot here, but Grass Knot's a really good one if your team specifically is having issues with Pokemon like Gastrodon, especially because of the fact that Gastrodon could Clear Smog you. I believe it does still get that. Not only this, but Thunderbolt is really good for things such as Heatran and Skarmory, specifically Heatran, less so to really beat it 1v1, because I don't know if that's really your goal with Clefable versus Heatran. However, it's more so because it's the Steel coverage option that would actually do anything to Heatran, whereas something like a Fire Blast or a Flamethrower would only benefit Heatran if nothing else, and you're pretty hard walled by it then. Whereas Thunderbolt, at least in a last-ditch effort, could help. Though you obviously do also have your fire moves for stuff like Scizor, so you do have a lot of options here. Scizor and Magnezone would really not appreciate Flamethrower. Skarmory and Scizor would, well, actually Skarmory wouldn't appreciate either, but Scizor would obviously not Scizor, Heatran would obviously not appreciate Thunderbolt. I do ultimately think Thunderbolt is probably the way I would go, just because I do think that Heatran will probably be the best Pokemon in the meta. I still do stand by that. However, I do still think that Clefable could be top 5 for sure. With that said, though, I do think that this Clefable could ultimately be the best Calm Mind Pokemon in the tier, let alone the best Calm Mind Clefable set in the tier. Looking at the OU tier that we're going to be getting, things like Garchomp, Latis, we have a lot of really good dragons that this Calm Mind Clefable could actually be a lot less passive against than any of the other Clefables thus far. Well, maybe not the Calm Mind versus Lottie, but this one also doesn't get pressured by Heatran and Skarmory very easily, in literally just the fact that they would come on the field alone and then beat you 1v1. So I do like that a lot with the Thunderbolt aspect. Not only that, but because of the fact you're Magic Guard, you're able to actually run Life Orb, which also honestly helps a lot with your damage output. Life Orb Clefable hits pretty obnoxiously hard, actually, even without investment. The 8 special attack, I do want to actually mention that. So this spread, I opted for a little bit different. I went with 84 speed. This should actually be creeping 0 speed Skarmory. However, feel free to take 4 more out of his def to creep 4 speed Skarmory if you feel like, or even 8. I don't really think that Skarmory will go faster than 24 though. That's the fastest thing I've ever seen it. But even for 24 speed Skarmory, you just want to add in 24 on your end, which just brings you down to this variant if you feel like it. I'll leave this on my screen for now in case you do want to copy it, but either one works. To be honest, they're both creeping Skarmories. It really just depends, I guess, on how fast Skarmory actually goes though. I forget why people ran 24 Skarmory, if I'm going to be honest. But I do know for a fact it was a default on damage calc at some point. I think it was Gen 6. Couldn't really tell you. With that said, though, the 8 special attack is very important, though, for Suicune mostly. I figured if it was a 248 HP, 8 speed up Suicune running around, this would actually be able to guarantee 2 KO on it. And I think that's pretty useful. It's only 8 EVs, and Suicune's a Pokemon that will just be rather obnoxious in my opinion, especially with the fact that Pokemon like Slowbro and Slowking lost Teleport. I think a Suicune could ultimately end up being one of, if not the premier waters, just in general in DPPOU. So with that in mind, I do think this Clefable set actually does have a lot going for it. However, there is one more Clefable set that I do think actually could end up being the best, and I think that all these honestly could be the best Clefable set. I think that Clefable is just going to really have to adapt its set based on the metagame. However, I think that all 4 of these are really safe bets if you want to try something day one. The final set on today's video is going to be an Unaware Stall Clefable set. Now, I say this is Unaware Stall, but truthfully, if Garchomp ends up being the premier Pokemon in the tier, like the later T of the tier, instead of something like maybe like, let's say, Gliscor or Heatran or Latios, I think that this ultimately could just be the best Clefable set to run. This set is Heal Bell, Moonblast, Wish, and Protect with Max Fizz Def with Unaware. Now, this is mostly just dedicated to trying to handle Garchomp as well as possible reliably. Mostly just because of the fact that the Max Fizz Def helps a lot with potential for taking rocks damage, which could be really useful, especially with the fact that Clefable does have to worry about that a little bit. If, for example, you were to go with Unaware and you were to calc this versus a Garchomp, even if it's just Swords Dance leftovers, let's say, this set would make it so you're guaranteed avoiding the 3 KO actually from Stealth Rocks. You could technically do that by going down to 236 Phys Def and 252 HP. However, it makes such little of a difference. This could potentially help just with Life Orb damage rolls. If Garchomp is running Life Orb, even if this doesn't have hazards up, the 252 does help a little bit with that, because it just minimizes any room for 2-hit KO, to be honest. By bringing your damage rolls down, this actually, I believe, you can technically get on to 240, because the other EVs don't make a difference. However, in general, I mean, it's only like 16 EVs, and you're not really doing much with it. In general, though, this Clefable, I think, is going to be best checked for Pokemon such as Garchomp, Dragonite, Salamence. However, Dragonite and Salamence much less so, because they don't really have good options of actually touching Clefable outside of Iron Tail for Salamence. And I think that Dragonite gets Iron Head at least. But unless they're really dedicating movesots for Unaware Clefable, which I will say, to be fair, because of the fact it will probably be such a common Pokemon being really the only Fairy type in the tier, I think Unaware actually has merit this generation in comparison because of how few toxic Pokemon there will be in at least a specific BDSP ladder. I do think that there is reason to believe that Salamence at least might actually run Iron Tail. Dragonite has a lot of variability. I don't know if it actually will dedicate a slot to a Steel move for Clefable or not. Earthquake might honestly suffice for there with like Dragonite's Dragon move, E-Speed and Earthquake or something, or ditching E-Speed for Roost. But I could maybe see like a Dragonite's 3 attacks Moxie set running with Salamence to where it would actually dedicate that Iron Tail slot. Regardless though, that's really like the best way that Mets has to damage this Pokemon, and Phys Def again helps with that because it does stop things like Moxie Salamence from really running through your team. In general, Moonblast would probably be the move of choice here. Heal Bell can easily be substituted for Calm Mind. However, at that point, if you're gonna run Calm Mind Unaware, I'd probably just go with the other set, unless, and I want to preface this, unless it's a physical dragon that runs the tier. If it's a physical dragon that runs the tier, no real reason to run the Spadef on Clef, or just the general mixed Def Calm Mind Clef. At that point, I would probably just go with a T-Tar as your partner, or even a Heatran as your partner for Latios, and then just run this Clef for the Dragons specifically. So with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully you guys learned something. I do think Clefable will genuinely be top 5 usage. I think it's going to be probably an A+, if not an S-rank Pokemon in BDSPOU. I really cannot see a world where it is anything lower than A+ with how few fairies there are. There's no competition for things like Tapu Fini, for example, in this format. So yeah, I really can't imagine this thing not being a top tier. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like below and comment your thoughts on what Pokemon you want to see next. If I see anything interesting or that I'm not already polling for tomorrow, I might actually substitute an option out in tomorrow's community poll. So of course, make sure to leave your comments there. With that said, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, guys.